This is the Know Your Law series by Barefoot Law, a non-profit organization which uses digital innovation and technology to provide free legal information and guidance for all. For more information, visit www.barefootlaw.org.
And welcome to our tenants and custody. Everything we're going to talk about today, we're talking about two people going their separate way. Like I've said, if it's marriage, the divorce route. If it's any other sort, what we call cohabiting, boyfriend, girlfriend, just go your separate way as divorce, as separation. So, Esther, we are going to talk about children now. We've had that word coming in, custody. What exactly does custody mean?
Custody simply means someone who is living with a child, someone who has the physical or legal custody. So custody is could be shared by the mother and the father of the child, or a guardian, or it could be one parent has custody of the children. We have sole custody, where one parent has physical custody of the child, and the other could have legal custody. So what's physical custody? Physical custody is someone living with a child. And we have legal custody. Someone who has legal custody may not be living with this child, but this person has the right to make certain decisions that affect the child. For example, education, their health, among other things. But if it's joint custody, both parents, what we hear about co-parenting. It could be co-parenting. The child could live with either parent, the mother and the father. That's different times, maybe school times. The child lives with the mother, holidays, or it could be shared depending on the location and the interests of the child.
Okay. Thank you very much, Esther. Dr. Diana, I'm coming to you. Peter, we are getting to Peter very, very soon. Yeah? So don't worry, it's not that the men are being left out of this thing. We're going to come to this very, very soon. Dr. Diana, I need you to elaborate a bit on this thing. Custody. Esther has mentioned something about shared custody.
Yes.
Is it that we only decide on whether we'll share this custody when we're separating? Let me put it another way. Who has custody or ownership of a child at before we get into the war zone? We are still in our honeymoon phase, we're in love. Does any single parent have this custody?
No, actually, when you look at, thank you very much, Alan. When you look at the Children Act, which actually deals with children issues, one of the rights of the child is to know both parents, okay? And then when you look at under the international instruments or the legislation or the laws that deal with children, says it provides, even our constitution, that both parents have an obligation to look after the children. So this child belongs to both the mother and the father. But when you get to our cultures, it is as if people think that the child belongs to the man, okay, to the man's clan, and so the man has to give to name the child. The man has to, it's his religion, everything. Well, I think that is a cultural thing. But when you look at the legal aspect, this child belongs to both of you, and both of you have an obligation to look after this child. Now, when you are living together, things are simple because you are living together. So you can each make a decision. You can go to your bedroom and say, I think the child should go to this school, and so on and so forth. It becomes tough then when parents decide they cannot live together and now they want to be separated. Okay. Many a times I've practiced law, and my area has been family law for the last 30 years. But what I see in the courts is that when parents have a dispute and they want legal judicial separation or divorce, it is like the war is now, when two elephants are fighting, it is the grass that suffers. So when these two parents are fighting, it's the children. I'll take the child, no, I'll take the child. And it is like it's Solomon, was it King Solomon? Yes. Where one said, okay, you cut the child in half and we take it. So, and if it was possible, that's what parents do. So it is really tough when it gets to the issue of separation as to the issue of custody. And when courts are dealing with this issue of custody, they always take into account the best interests of the child. What will be good for the child when the child is growing up? Should this child stay with the father who goes to work at 7 and comes back at midnight and has no time? Should this child stay with the mother who has a 9-to-5 job and stays home over the weekend? Should this child stay, you know, they take into account so many things, because remember, a child is growing up. So if the child is growing up, it is important to look at the emotional, the psychological, and all those of the well-being of the child.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Diana.
Yes.
Peter, I've seen you shaking your head. You've been nodding like you're in the right place. Eh? So jump right in.
Yes, to add on what Dr. Diana was saying, yes, court considers a number of issues when they are determining custody of the child. They look at the best interest, who should have that child. And for us as probation officers and as courts, we look at 4 main aspects when it comes to bringing up a child. Is the child going to school? Is the child being breastfed? Does the child, can you as a parent offer accommodation to this child? And can you also offer clothing to this child? So those are the main areas that we basically consider when you're looking at who should have custody. And also, do you have capacity to look after the child? Because in separations you might find that maybe children are best with the mother because she has the time. However, you find that the mother doesn't have the money to give to the children. So it is court's decision to make who should have that custody. But just like Doctor said, both parents, and in accordance to the Constitution, the children have a right to know and to be cared for by both parents. And by parents we mean father and mother. So for the clients that we get in the probation office, we tell them actually that you the man, and you the mother, you have 50% chances when it comes to custody. But other aspects come in. For example, the aspect of age. When a child is 2 years and below, we assume that that child is breastfeeding. So the child is best with the mother. So there, it is absolutely hard to find any court, unless in special circumstances, where you find that court is giving custody to the father. But those aspects are very rare. In most cases, that custody is granted to the mother. You want to ask something?
You have actually touched 2 very important points. I wanted to go to Dr. Diana, but you have nudged the point that I wanted to bring up. But you've talked about there are special circumstances when the court may not grant. So you've talked about if the child is young, there may still be a chance that the court may not grant. What other circumstances possibly exist in your experience as a probation officer where I may lose possibly getting custody of a child, my own biological child?
There are a number of circumstances. For example, you have nowhere to stay. You are not working. So meaning you cannot provide anything for this child. And then we've seen circumstances where children, where the parents maybe are engaged in bad behaviors. For example, we had a case where the mother is a prostitute, the father also engages in heavy drinking and also engages in buying of prostitutes and bringing them at home. And actually in that special case, the man was bringing 4 women at the same time and using them in front of the children. There, of course, you lose and we withdraw the children. In this specific case, we withdrew the children for 4 years as government, and we had them for all those 4 years. So we found these parents unfit to have these children. So there are circumstances where you can lose custody of your own biological children.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. Before I let you go and I jump back to Dr. Diana, one more small thing, because we need this to be as practical as possible. Suppose it's been a bit of a rare occurrence. I know that it hasn't been reported as often. Suppose I have been in an abusive relationship, and out of fear of my life, fear for my life, I decide to flee this house in the middle of the night. Tell me, do my chances of getting custody of the child suffer because of that? I run away today because if I try and run away with this child, there's a likelihood I will be killed. If I run away and then ask for custody for this child, what are my chances?
So if you run away from an abusive relationship, immediately report. Report to, we have child and family protection units at all police stations. Report. And if it is domestic violence, and if there is evidence actual of domestic violence, that's why we encourage mainly the women, because women are more affected when it comes to domestic violence than us, the men. And you find that it is mainly us, the men, that are the biggest perpetrators of domestic violence. But when you have evidence, go to police. That evidence is very crucial when you reach court. And the magistrate or the judge has to decide on who should have custody of the child. In some circumstances, we are not sure. You might be alleging, you might be telling us lies that this man is very abusive or this woman is very abusive. So my role as a probation officer, I investigate. I speak to you, the man, I speak to you, the mother, I speak to the community, I speak to a number of people. I also speak to the child if the child is of age. And at the end of the day, I write what we call a social welfare report for court to determine, to use when they're determining the custody of the child. But also in there, I give my recommendations in who, depending on what I've investigated and also my analysis, who should have custody of the child. And if court decides otherwise, then they should also give me a reason. Actually, the law says they give a reason as to why they did not go by the recommendation of the probation officer. That is in the Children's Act.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that is very important.
Hello, welcome to the Know Your Law series, where Barefoot Law answers frequently asked questions on the law. Do you have employment issues? Questions about family law, criminal law, land transactions? The answers are right here on the Know Your Law series.